I got a batch of some new One Piece shirts. This one has Ace on it. Um, so this is going to be kind of my Dia de los Muertos video for this year. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do one every year. This one I kind of thought of partway through. Well, you'll see very quickly. This one I thought of when I was working on getting stuff ready for the Coco review several months ago when I was doing that for the Pixar movies. A couple of months ago. And so this one is going to be about Brook, as you can probably tell from the thumbnail, but I'm also going to tie it into Coco and the Land of the Remembered. So, those of you that are, of course, familiar with One Piece, of course, know who Brook is. He's, the skeleton on the crew, Soul King Brook, or Humming Swordsman Brook, as he was originally. He is currently, I believe, he's 90 years old. He is a skeleton. He has a very great afro and a very nice sense of fashion. Borrowing from the amazing reference of fashion that is Slash from Guns N' Roses. The other thing about Brook is obviously he's a skeleton, and in that regards, he is a reviving human. He ate the Yomi Yomi no Mi, or the return fruit, or return, revived, resurrected, the revive fruit, depending on which way you want to go with it for the whatever dub or translation you want to go with. I'm just used to it as like the revive fruit, because that's the Funimation dub, Viz and Funimation. But, Yomi Yomi is a Japanese one, of course. And, we know that the concept behind this fruit is that Brook ate the devil fruit while he was still alive. Kind of have to eat devil fruits while you're alive. He ate the devil fruit while he was alive, and then it had no effect on him while he was alive, except for the fact that he, couldn't swim, which I'm like, okay, depending on how your life goes, that's not a very good trade-off. But given the fact of what happens with Brook, it ends up being the perfect one for him to have. And, he even says, like, in the flashback that we get with him and the rest of the Rumbar pirates, they're like, well, Brook, you ate the devil fruit, do you think that, exactly how that's going to work? And he's like, I don't know. I've never eaten one before. I don't know what's going to happen. Could work, it could not work. I don't know. I don't remember if we ever actually find out exactly when Brook ate the devil fruit. I would actually assume it's probably sometime while they were on the Grand Line, between after they left Laboon, but, before they died, before all of the crew was attacked and died and everything. I would assume it was sometime in that time frame, because I don't think they mention him having the devil fruit, like, before they arrive in the Grand Line, but I could be wrong. But we know that, the rest of the Rumbar pirates, they split in half. Yorkie stays with part of them because, him and the rest of them, half of the crew are, like, sick, and they stay behind on an island, and then Brook becomes the new captain and leads them onward, and then they end up in the Florian Triangle, where they, of course, end up getting attacked by a pirate crew that uses poison, and then all of them end up getting poisoned, and then they spend their last several moments alive, singing Bink Sake. I will come back to Bink Sake in this, I promise. Singing, Bink Sake and recording it on the tone dial. So that way, when, because, Brook is supposedly going to be the one that will get this extra life, and then when he comes back, he can hold on to the tone dial, and then he can use that, and then when he finds Laboon again, he can then play the tone dial for Laboon. That's the whole point of that. And, of course, we find all this out during Thriller Bark and everything. We've, heard vaguely about the Rumbar pirates much earlier on in the series, when the Straw Hats first, went over, Reverse Mountain, and they talked to, talked to Crocus and met Laboon and everything. And, we kind of found out about the crew then. And then later on, and then, of course, Brook, the whole crew is, singing and everybody, and, like, everybody's happy, but they're all dying in the process. And, it's going, quartet, trio, duo, and then single, and then Brook dies and everything. And then Brook's soul, we get the animation in the series, and I think they show part of this in the manga. We see his soul, go up to heaven, and then it gets kicked out of heaven, kicked out of the afterlife. And then, he gets the soul can go back to his body. But, of course, in the process, it's, first he has to find his body, which it would have been one thing. Like, I'm going to use Ace as an example here because I'm, have Ace on the shirt and everything, and he's one of the other very major characters that we know that died, and we know exactly where they died. Like, if Ace had been the one that ate the revive fruit instead of him having the Mara no Mi, first of all, different battles would have turned out very differently. But if it had been that he'd been at Marineford and he still died there, that part still happens. He still is, fights his way through everything else, but he still dies at Marineford to the hands of Akainu. If Ace had the revive fruit, then, his soul probably would have gotten, up and then kicked back out. And then Ace would know exactly where to go. It's like, oh, Marineford, zoom back there as fast as possible and get back in his body. And then we get Zombie Ace, which so many people want. Or, if it had been Monette in that case, or like whoever else where we know exactly where they died, then they would be able to return to their body. But the thing is of course, we all know that Brook was in the Florian Triangle, which is extremely foggy, and it is extremely hard to navigate in. And it took Brook a whole year to find the ship again. And then he ends up, of course, finding his body, and everything is rotted away except for his bones and his afro, because his afro has extremely deep roots. Then he's scared by his own body, but he goes back in the body. And then, we get the sad bit where just Brook ends up, on the, has to like gather up all the bodies of his dead companions, and we see some of that. I think they elaborate on that a little bit more in the anime, which is like, I guess technically qualifies as filler, but it's filler that makes sense because that's what Brook would have done. He would have, because it would have been hard enough to walk around and see his own face in the mirrors, and he's like smashed all the mirrors. But it also would have been hard enough if he'd had to see all of their bodies every single day. So he gathered them all up and at least gave them some form of a burial on the ship and everything, and we see that. And of course, we know from his dealings with Black Maria, when him and Robin were fighting against Black Maria, that, Black Maria can make you hallucinate stuff. And she made Robin hallucinate her mother and Saul and Clover and everything. And then, Robin kind of fought her way out of that or figured that out pretty quickly. But for Brook, it didn't affect him at all because he states, oh, I basically spent 50 years on the ship filled with, the ghosts of my dead companions, of my dead crewmates. And so I know exactly what that feels like, and I know to spot it when it's wrong again, when it's not quite real anymore. When he's kind of desensitized to it, which is just freaking heartbreaking in that regard. But, so the way that we see this goes, he, goes to the afterlife and then comes, is kicked out, comes back, gets his body back. And then, now he has, after the time skip, he now has more of the ability to, summon the powers of hell, the freezing powers of hell and everything. And his music can be very effective because he can affect people's souls. And I just watched, I'm working my way through the Whole Cake English dub right now. And I, just kind of watched the one where Brook breaks into the vault and, ends up using his Soul King powers in order to, basically wipe the heck out of all of the different peacekeeper, chess peacekeepers, which is awesome scene to watch, by the way. I love that scene. That's just like Brook. Brook, you get MVP for like this whole breaking into the Whole Cake Chateau. Nothing against Pedro, love Pedro, but Brook gets MVP for that because we know he does manage to, get the rubbings of the poneglyphs, and then he has them inside of his skull, and then he gives them to Nami and Jinbei and the others when they're in, the Miro world and everything, and they're just like, oh my god, Brook, you did it! It's just like, yes, Brook. Wonderful, Brook. But we see that with Brook, and then, of course, we kind of see, in other cases, we see him, of course, be able to affect people's souls. He can make people, more riled up. He can make people calm down. He can make people fall asleep, depending on his music. Which I would think even in the beginning, like when we're first introduced to him, maybe not so much on Thriller Bark itself, but we see him start to demonstrate some of this during the time when they have to deal with the Flying Fish Riders, and a little bit during when they're at, Saba Odi and everything. Where we see him, being able to affect people's emotions a little bit. We see this a little bit in, I know it's not canon, but Strong World, where he, affects some of the different, ruffian pirates that they're having to deal with when they're trying to fight Shiki and everything. He just makes a whole bunch of them fall asleep and everything. Also, trivia that I found out while I was doing this. He is the Straw Hat that has the fewest named attacks that actually involve his devil fruit, because a lot of his ones are also like sword moves and music and stuff like that. Because like pretty much all of Luffy's attacks have Gumu 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 no in them, and Robin has the Hana Hana, and Chopper has he doesn't usually shout out like the Hito Hito this or whatever, but he has bits in there that are kind of have his have part of the his devil fruit name in there. Although Luffy may now have to adjust some of his naming abilities on his devil fruit if ever he finds out about that. But what his devil fruit actually is. But the other part that I wanted to go over before I go into the comparisons I wanted to make are so the reason that I'm connecting this to Coco, well, Coco specifically, but also just the Land of the Remembered in general when it comes to hi Rainy. He's like, there's stuff on the bed. Rainy didn't have a good night last night. He got kind of sick, so I had to take care of him. Hopefully he's feeling better. We'll find out later. But Coco, and then also the Book of Life, if you want to look into those ones, they do very good explanations as to how the Land of the Remembered tends to work. And it's basically when you die, and this is mostly in Hispanic culture, Mexican culture. I don't know exactly how pervasive it is into other areas of South America, because Encanto, who's another Disney project that does deal with this type of thing or that type of culture, doesn't really touch on Dia de los Muertos. It's mostly in Coco, and then Book of Life, although it's not Disney, I think Disney has it on Disney Plus. Deals with the afterlife, or the way that works for like the country of Mexico, and of course that has spread a little bit because there's people within the United States and in other countries that do celebrate Dia de los Muertos because they are of Hispanic descent, and I just love the concept anyway. And the way that it works is when you die in Hispanic culture, or in the way that it's shown in the movie, you die, you go to the Land of the Remembered, you pass on. And then on, Dia de los Muertos, you're then able to pass back into the land of the living. Your spirit is, and you're able to, see your family that is still alive. But the catch is that you can only go back if your photo is on an ofrenda. And we see this very specifically in Coco, where we see all the different family photos and stuff like that of the family members on the ofrenda, and then we see their spirits, their souls. Their their ghosts, their skeletons, whatever you want to go for, in the Land of the Remembered. And then, of course, we see them be able to pass into the human world, as opposed to Hector, who is, of course, not able to do this. He can't pass through because his photo is not up. And, of course, the whole plot of Coco is Hector wants to get, in Hector's case, he wants to get his photo into the human world and on an ofrenda, so that way he can go through and so he can see his daughter one last time, because he can tell that this is like her last, this is going to be her last Dia de los Muertos, and he needs to get back to her because she's forgetting him. And we also learn that part of the rules for Dia de los Muertos in the Land of the Remembered is that your family, or that your memory has to be passed on by people that knew you in life. So that's why, Miguel can pass, or, we find out, of course, his daughter is, of course, Miguel's grandmother, Coco, and she can pass on memories of her father. She can pass on memories of Hector, tell her children and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren about Hector and everything from what she remembers of him and everything. And then that is able to keep his memory alive, because now it's spread to them, because that followed the rule of transient property of like, oh, she told them these things about her father. Once she was able to, have a much more clear memory of him because of the song Remember Me. I'm going to make a comparison between Remember Me and Bink Sake a little bit later, because I will touch back on those, because I found that very interesting in comparison between them. But she is able to pass on that the memories that she has of him and everything. Well, she was very young when he was still alive, before he died, before he left and before he died. She still has these memories of him, and she can pass them on to her children and her grandchildren and everything. And then from there, they're able to pass on these memories because it's, she passed it on to them, and then they can pass it down the line. And then it's also because it is revealed that, of course, Hector was actually the one that wrote all of these songs that um, Ernesto that Ernesto had written. That he is actually the one that wrote all these songs, and that the credit should go to him, not Ernesto de la Cruz. So that helps keep, his memory alive, and kind of spreads their family's memory, like the power for people to remember them out over, the course of further generations. And in the comparison that we see in the movie is in the Land of the Remembered, there is this thing that is called the Final Death. And we see this section of the Land of the Remembered that is filled with people who do not really have anyone in their anyone that is alive that either A, puts their pictures up, or very few people that even remember them. It could have been they didn't have the ability to have their picture taken. Some of them may have been too poor to get their picture taken and they couldn't do that. Or just other things, or just they don't have someone that has the ability to put up their picture on the ofrenda. They're, forgotten aunts or uncles or other things. And, they kind of act as each other's family within the Land of the Remembered, because we see that Hector lives in this area. And then the main example that we get of this thing that is called the Final Death is with Chicharon, who is this, very old, kind of very decrepit skeleton friend of Hector. And we see him, it's explained by Hector that when the last person alive who remembers you finally completely forgets about you or dies themselves, and they were not able to pass on any memories of you to anybody else to keep your memory alive, you are then fully forgotten. You go through the final death. And what we see with this is with Chicharon, we see him, fading and fading and flickering and fading, and then he just kind of, dematerializes. He just kind of crumbles, turns into, golden dust, and just kind of disappears. And which is a heartbreaking thing to watch in the movie, because you kind of understand that this is something, by the partway through the movie, you figure out that this is what's going to happen to Hector if Miguel doesn't get back and put his, picture up, or if he isn't able to, help Coco remember, which we find out very much at the very end of the movie that, oh no, Coco is actually, Hector's granddaughter and everything. Or Hector's daughter. And, Hector goes through all of that course of the movie, and by the end of the movie, Hector, Miguel is able to return to the land of the living. Rainy, are you okay? Miguel is able to return to the land of the living, and Hector has been able to somewhat fix, his relationship with the rest of the family, and with the rest of the Rivera family. And Miguel returns to the land of living, to to our world, and he's able to help his grandma Coco remember by playing the song "Remember Me," because Hector wrote that song specifically for her, and he's able to help her remember more clearly her father, because it's been either so long since she heard that song, beyond like the Ernesto de la Cruz version that was probably played all over the place. But she is able to remember it the way that her father sang it to her, and then she's able to then have enough clarity in probably what is either dementia or Alzheimer's, or just, she's 99 years old in the movie already. So, the woman's hanging on there. She's awesome. And, she is able to then pass down these memories of her father. She kept the piece of his picture that was ripped off of the family photo. She gives that to Miguel. She passes on these memories and the letters and everything that her father sent her while he was on his, on his trip, on his travels, trying to find his, place as being a musician and everything. Miguel tells the family, Hector wanted to come back, but he couldn't. How he ever explained that he found out about this is completely, I don't know, but he explains it somehow. Well, I went to the land of the remembered, and I met our family, and I met Hector, and he's actually not what you think he is and everything. Yeah, he's a musician, but blah, blah, blah. And we see Hector at the end of the movie, and his, he's much better. He's with the family. He's able to go into the human world and everything, and, be around his family. And the comparisons that I wanted to make between Brook and Hector, specifically between those two in this comparison, is the fact that, well, they're both skeletons for like pretty much the entirety of the movie beyond flashbacks that we get. And for Brook, the entirety of the series from the moment we meet him up, even with, flashbacks, until, unless we get the flashbacks of him and everything, he is a skeleton. So we have both of them as skeletons. And they're both musicians, which is just, added to this, which was not one of the reasons why I was doing this comparison, but they're both musicians, which is just nice. And I kind of put it as they're both powered by memories. So, in the fact that Hector is, he is able to actually, he looks so much better and cleaner and everything by the end of the movie because now he's actually being powered by the memories of Miguel, and his, the rest of his family have accepted him and everything, and he is able to actually be, you're kept in, I would say, like mint condition for a skeleton, I guess, if you have enough people that remember you, and it's good memories, and their memories are told and spread about you to be able to keep you alive in the afterlife, in the land of the remembered. And for Brook, as far as we are aware, the only two living beings that even remember who Brook is are Crocus and Laboon. And Crocus remembers who Brook is because he remembers the Rumbar pirates and everything. Mainly remembers Yorkie, but he remembers Brook too. And then we have Laboon. And of course, Laboon remembers them because he, remembers being around Brook when he was a little baby and everything. And, Laboon wants to see them again because it's like, oh, they promised that they would return. And, Crocus is under the impression that, like, all of the Rumbar crew died. Now, there is the side theory that, like, oh, well, Yorkie and his part of the crew that were in that, like, split from Brook and the other crew because they were sick, maybe they got better. Maybe Yorkie and that part of the crew got better. And then, like, maybe they tried to find the rest of their crew, but that didn't work. Or maybe they just left the Grand Line. After getting word that, like, the Rumbar pirates were dead or something like that. Maybe they left the Grand Line or something. But I still think that Yorkie and the others, if possible, would have tried to go back to get to Laboon somehow. I mean, depending on, they were in the Florian Triangle, was where the crew ended up, but don't know exactly where the other part of the crew exactly was in that regard. In comparison to the other islands that would have been around there. I mean, like, Water 7 would have been a possibility, but I doubt it. Because there's other islands that are within that range that possibly would have taken you through the Florian Triangle when you were trying to make your way through to Fishman Island. Or, well, Saba Odi and then to Fishman Island. So there's that. But if it was possible for, like, the Rumbar pirates, for the Yorkie's part of the crew, if they did survive, then that would have somewhat contributed to Brook having, I guess, more people remember him and keep him alive. Now, I know that this is not actually something that, like, Oda has explained in the story, but it's just, I just wanted to make the comparison because I like it. I like the comparison. And what we see is, of course, Hector ends up being more kept alive. In the beginning of the movie, he's more kept alive because of Coco's very small, very fading memories of him. And then by the end of the movie, he's much more, whole and healthy as a skeleton because more people are remembering who he is. And we see that comparison. And the comparison that I give with Brook is that, he's vaguely kept alive by, Crocus and Laboon's memories. And then when he ends up on Thriller Bark, he's able to, he technically is kept alive to a degree because, Moria takes a shadow and puts it in Ryuma, and then, and technically they need to keep Brook alive, I guess, because if he disappears and the shadow goes away, I would assume. I don't remember if they ever actually explained that part in the show or in the manga, but, Brook stays alive on the ship, trapped in the Florian Triangle and everything, but now there's, like, vague memories of him on Thriller Bark from, Moria and Perona and Absalon and, Hogback and everything. They have vague memories of him. And then when the Straw Hats show up and they start interacting with Brooke. Also, I will point out the fact that, there's, the stories from the Florian Triangle are also about like, oh, there's like a ship that, ships with singing skeletons on them and everything. And if that was just a rumor that people spread because they saw Brooke, then that kind of also contributes to him staying alive. Him, being able to stay alive in that regard. But one of the other ways that they do it is, once Brooke starts interacting with the Straw Hats and everything, once he's, finds out that, oh, they know who Laboon is, and, they help him and they get his shadow back and everything else. And then he ends up joining the crew and everything. We get this moment where, they have the little episode where Brooke's trying to like find his spot on the crew, and it works. He's a musician and everything, and he just needs to learn how to work with the crew better and everything, find how, he syncs up with them, which is fine. And one of the other bits is, I don't remember if when they reach like where they interact with like the flying fish riders and Duval and everything. I don't remember if Brooke has like slightly better clothes by then or not. I know that when they get to in Strong World, which I know is not canon again, but in Strong World, he's got nicer clothes, better clothes and everything for him to wear and everything. But then of course when they're in Sabaody, he's got better clothes, and then they end up getting split apart and everything. And during that time frame, I don't know how easily they would have had time to shop to get more clothes for Brooke anyway, because they go from the Florian Triangle, canonically, they go from the Florian Triangle right to the Rosy Life or the Flying Fish Riders right into Sabaody. So I don't know exactly when they would have had time to get more clothes for Brooke. But maybe they managed to get some more clothes for him somehow, or maybe they raided, some of the wardrobes on, Thriller Bark and got some clothes for him there. I would assume someone on the Straw Hats knows how to sew. Well, I think Nami knows how to sew, so maybe she would. It's like, you helped us, so I'll at least give you a discount in regards to how much interest it'll cost for me to fix this clothes so you can wear them. Because I would have to imagine that, like, Absalon and, I don't know, Moria's closet may have been filled with the same stupid outfit that he wears anyway, but, maybe Absalon and whatever may have had other clothes that she could pick from and, give Brooke a better outfit or something like that. I don't know. But very specifically, by the time they come back from the time skip, we see Brooke in, very crisp, clean cut clothing and everything. He's dressed as the rock star and everything, but his clothing is all very nice, which, canonically is just contributed to the fact that, he is now a rock star. He is Soul King Brook. He's been on a big worldwide tour and everything. And, he's got all this dough coming in and everything. So we have that. His TDs are all over the place and everything. He's done concerts and everything. So that's part of it. That's part of where a lot of his money is coming from. And that's why he has like the really nice clothing and everything. By the way, I wonder what happens to all of that money. I'm highly doubt his manager or his agent or whatever, the long arm guy, let him keep very much of it now that he left. But still, they just need to do something where like Brooke ends up doing like a concert somewhere. Like they land on an island and like everybody's like, oh my God, it's Soul King Brook. Can we get a concert? And then like Nami's just like, ding, ding, ka-ching, ka-ching, and just like that's a concert. I want that to happen. We might get a little bit of that in like Film Red maybe. But coming out very shortly. But the other bit is, in regards to the fact that like, counteractively, it's just like more people know who Brook is now. More people have memories of him because of his music. His agents and managers and everything know who he is. His fans know who he is. The Straw Hats, yes, they have the more clear memories of him, the more personal memories of him. But Brook spent longer with the two managers, with his like long arm managers or whatever, than he did with the Straw Hats. He was maybe with the Straw Hats for like 2 weeks or something like that, 2-3 weeks maybe, between the time when they left Thriller Bark and when they got to, Sabaody and everything before they were all split up. But that just already shows you the kind of loyalty that Luffy has earned, where it's like, Brook's like, I'm going to go back to the pirates because they were my friends. I only spent a couple of weeks with them, but they were my friends, and I'm going to go back to them over being a rock star. Not that he's still not a rock star and everything, as obvious by the fact that he, is able to just be awesome in Totland when they're dealing with the chess peacekeepers and everything, and that he can affect the homies and such because of him having the power of soul, and he's kind of immune to Big Mom's soul pocus and everything, and having her try to mess with his soul and everything. He's immune to that. But it's yes, the canon answer is he has more money, so he has better clothes. The Land of the Remembered answer is Brook now has better clothing and everything because he's better remembered by so many people. He has more of this memory permeating thing, so he has more power there. Also, the fact that he trained and everything over the time skip and such, and he's continued to train and get stronger and everything, as we see. He's stronger in Totland than he was when they were at Fishman Island and when they were at Punk Hazard, and then he's got stronger in Wano than he was when they were at Totland and everything. He gets stronger. All the Straw Hats continuously get stronger. Brook didn't really get too much of a power up during the time frame that they were at Onigashima or anything like that, but he has shown what he is capable of a bit more than showing off some of what he could do in Totland and everything, but now he's shown off even more of what he can do with all of the ice powers and everything like that he was able to use against Black Maria and helping Robin. So we see that, but so Brook is more powered that way by all of these other people that remember him, and the Straw Hats and everything. And the way that works with the Land of the Remembered is that the more people that know you, that remember you, that have clear and good memories of you, or that were passed down to you by people that knew them, the better you're physically taken care of within the Land of the Remembered and everything, the better you're kind of provided for to a degree in the Land of the Remembered. And for Brook, it's the more people that know about him, particularly the Straw Hats. And then, of course, I would assume by now that Crocus has seen the Wanted poster and maybe has made the connection that there was that swordsman on the Rumbar Pirates that had that was the humming swordsman or whatever, and saw that this is the same guy, and shows that to Laboon and everything, because Laboon seems to sense something with Brook. So we'll see whatever happens when they get back together. But now I did want to make the comparison between Bink Sake and Remember Me. So a lot of people in regards to One Piece, in regards to theories and everything, think that Bink Sake might be a clue to how the story is going to end, that it's a metaphor for the story and everything. And I have not memorized the lyrics to Bink Sake. I apologize. Here they are. I will also put a link to the Wikipedia page where I got these from, the One Piece Wikipedia page where I got these from, so you can always double check through the lyrics and everything and see, if you just don't remember what it is, you can probably find it where you find either Brook or someone singing Bink Sake. And of course, that the theory is that Bink Sake has been passed down through the generations, and it's part of it is a reference to Laugh Tale or the Great Kingdom and everything, and that because Luffy learned Bink Sake from Shanks and his crew, and then Brook knows it and he's confused as to why Luffy knows it, and everything. So there's theories that Bink Sake is a metaphor for the story in general, or for parts of the story in regards to finding the One Piece and such. So there's that. And then with Remember Me from Coco, which again I will put a link to it, there's 3 different versions of Remember Me. There's the lullaby version that we see that Hector sings in the flashback to little Coco, and then there's the Ernesto de la Cruz version of Remember Me, and then there's the one that they have those over the end credits / what they sang at the Oscars, which all of them are very good. But the lullaby one is more the one that I'm focusing on, because it's much less pomp and circumstance and everything than the Ernesto de la Cruz one. Not that the Ernesto de la Cruz one isn't fun. And he also gets a giant bell dropped on him at the end of it when he dies. That happens twice in the movie. But, for Remember Me, it's kind of the whole thing of Remember Me is a reference to the fact that, for the Land of the Remembered, you are powered by the memories of those who knew you in life, by your family and friends and by your fans, I guess, to a degree. And that is kind of what helps keep you alive in the afterlife. And Ernesto is a very good example of the fact that he's been feeding off of that, because, people give him tributes and everything. Like, everybody wants to be around Ernesto de la Cruz and all of that. And then, everything is revealed about what he's done and how horrible he actually is and everything, because he killed, he was going to kill Miguel, and he was going to kill Hector and everything, and not care that Hector was going to die and everything. And we see all of that, and that's revealed to everybody, all of his fans and everything, live broadcast at his own Sunrise Spectacular and everything. So we see that, but then with it's a lullaby, that the core of it is, it's a lullaby that Hector sang to Coco when she was a little girl. That was a song for both of them. Remember me. So even if you have to travel far, remember me every time you hear a sad guitar and everything. And it's kind of like instructions as to, like, remember me and I won't go away completely. Remember me and I'll always be able to somehow find a way back to you. And for people in general that have lost family members, and part of what Dia de los Muertos is, and it also to a degree tends to correspond with the Christian holiday of All Saints Day, where is or at least in the Lutheran Church, is when we remember the different people that have passed away in the past year within our congregation, or at least that's the way that it works at my church. We remember those that have passed away within the past year, and these are people, died. Either they were usually they were quite old, but sometimes they were people that were younger that died from sad circumstances, or diseases, or whatever the case may be. And I've had family that have been on that list. My grandmother's been on that list. Even in other sections of my family, I've had other people that you want to hope that they're in a better place for various reasons, because maybe they didn't have the best time here. I lost my cousin's widowed husband a couple of weeks ago. He'd married, his name was Tom, and he'd married into the family. Like, he was part of the family since I was like a baby, or well, not since I was a baby, but since I was like a little kid. And he'd been married to my cousin, and then she passed away about 12 years ago, unfortunately, from a few different factors. And then he was, we still considered him part of the family and everything. And that's just the way that my mom's family works, is that, even if like, because I've had like two aunts that, like, they had married my uncles, and my uncles had passed away, and like, we still consider them part of the family. We still consider them as part of the family, because for us, that's what they are, And, unfortunately, Tom, he ended up getting remarried a couple of years ago. Perfectly fine with that. Very happy for him. And he unfortunately passed away a couple of weeks ago. So, there's that. There's other times where you just, you have people that you lose. And it's, remember me are like instructions to, like, as long as you remember that person, they're never really gone. And I know that, like, the version of, like, the Christian afterlife, heaven, hell, purgatory, limbo, wherever you want to put it, people's memories of you aren't necessarily what affect you being able to be alive there, or being able to have like a good time there or whatever. It's based on your own actions that you took while you were alive. But I still kind of think that part of that being remembered is important, because even if you don't believe in the concept of the afterlife, whatever version of the afterlife or reincarnation or whatever you want to go for, even if you don't believe that, and you just believe that you die and that's nothing, there's nothing after that, which, a lot of people believe, and if that's what they believe, that's fine. But, at least somewhat remembering the people that have left you, some by choice, unfortunately, some by accident, some by old age, some by disease, illness, whatever, as long as you at least keep some part of that person alive, you remember them, you pass on stories about them, you keep their pictures up or whatever, you still go and visit their graves, or whatever, it keeps them alive a little bit to a degree. They're not entirely gone, which I like. regardless of what your religion is, you know. But that's what I had for this one. I wanted to make those comparisons between Brook and Hector and everything, and like how these are two musician skeletons that have. Hector was kind of to a degree on his own a lot longer than Brook was, because he died when like Coco was, I think, like I want to say like 4 or 5, and then she's like 99 by the time he's actually finally able to, reconcile with his family and everything, because of the whole rift and everything with him being a musician and leaving and everything. And so there's all of that. But when it comes to Brook and everything, he's got the Straw Hats now. Hector has finally been reunited with his family and everything, and got Coco with him and everything. So we see all of that, and I just wanted to make those comparisons. So that's what I have. I thank you very much for watching. Happy Dia de los Muertos to anyone that celebrates that. Happy All Saints Day to anyone that celebrates that. Happy day after Thanksgiving, where you can gorge yourself on, Halloween candy. Happy whatever that is. So yeah, have fun with that however you go. Just, remember your family members that you've lost. Keep good memories of them around and pass them on. And if you want to go listen to Bink Sake or Remember Me, go do that too. Bye.
I'll cut you down to the bone. That's pretty easy to do on me, of course. Yo!